I want to thank all my listeners for tuning in tonight. Tonight is episode number 30, so kind of a little milestone for me. Tonight I've got a little change in gears here. A lot of times we have technology people on and drone people on this podcast, but tonight we're going to dive into lawn care. Tonight's guest, Ryan Knorr. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey on YouTube.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. YouTube for me kind of started as well, actually, it started back all the way in 2007. I started doing some music stuff on there. I was just basically sitting in my bedroom playing music and putting it up online when I had nowhere else to put it. So I started kind of gaining a following there. And back in the day, I didn't really know what to do with it or what that meant. But so then I came to a point where that kind of fizzled out a little bit. I had a few other things going on, and my wife and I had moved to our house in 2011. And the next spring, I started noticing, lawn needs a lot of work, the typical homeowner thing when you become a first time homeowner. So I kind of was thinking back to my days of being a kid and mowing lawns, and it's like, I got to learn this stuff because I wanted to do it myself. I'm just kind of that type of person that likes to learn different things and dive completely obsessively into whatever I want to learn. So that's what I did. And it didn't start right away with YouTube, but as I started to gain more knowledge and, things were starting to look better, I was like, maybe I should just start documenting this, even if it's just for myself to see what's changed year to year, what works, what doesn't. And I started putting that up on YouTube in 2016, and then here we are now, 175,000 ish subscribers, and people watching me mow my yard. It's crazy.
How does that feel? Reaching a milestone like 100,000 subscribers is unbelievable. Now you're on the brink of hitting 200,000 subscribers. Tell us how that feels.
It's really crazy to me. I mean, I really don't even. I would say that I don't think about it that much, but obviously, you look at the numbers, but I'm just my small town guy doing what I do, and that's kind of my mentality. Otherwise, I think it would get too big for you, or maybe you'd start being almost a little bit nervous about what you're doing on the channel. But I don't think about it too much in terms of how many people are watching, but it is getting to that point where even locally I'll go somewhere to Menards or Home Depot or something, and someone will stop me and be like, "Hey, I watch your videos." And so that's kind of strange.
So when you're out in public, are you known as the lawn care guy or are you known as like the music guy? Because I know you've got both
Definitely the lawn, yeah.
lawn care. Okay.
Whenever I go to, like, a home store or something, there tends to be someone there who is like, "Yeah, it's a weird thing because they'll just kinda give me that look like, "I think I know who you are," and then eventually most of the time, like, they get up the courage to come over and say, "Hey," and so it's kinda cool.
Yep, it's funny you talk about being a first-time home buyer because that's actually how I found your channel, and I actually found your channel through the lawn care nut. Back when he was
Mhm.
pushing Milorganite, Milorganite, Milorganite,
Yep.
I was just purchasing a home myself, and I thought, you know what? I want to spruce this up. I want to have a nice lawn, make a good impression on the neighbors right when I moved in. And
Yep.
so I did the Milorganite thing, and then I found your channel, and I'm just trying to slowly learn. Now, for me, it's a slow process. I mean, I did the Milorganite thing, and now my problem is crabgrass. So if you've got a solution for that, do you have anything that's just a surefire? I know the pre-emergent you
Usually,
talk about, and
a lot of the pre-emergents that are out today, as long as you get them down in the spring at the right timing, so, it's probably around before your soil temps get around 55-ish for the first application there, it's gonna be pretty effective. And so even splitting that into 2 things, that's kind of what I've been doing the last couple years, is doing like a half rate early on, and then as you get to about a soil temp of around 70, it depends, on your location, but then usually the second application there will take care of pretty much everything. You might have a little breakthrough here and there on the edges of sidewalks or areas that are just, get a lot hotter and from the sun, but otherwise you should be pretty good.
See, for me, the thing that I like about Milorganite is I'm always terrified I'm going to burn my lawn. And I'm sure with a lot of first time home buyers, that's the case. They don't want to burn their lawn, but they want it to look nice. Is there any
Yep.
other products like that that you could promote?
That's probably why it's as popular as it was, and why, Alan the lawn care nut really was talking about that a lot on his channel too at the beginning, is just because of that exact thing. Someone who wants to get into taking care of their yard, I think really the apprehension of what could go wrong is the main barrier there to them being successful with it or feeling comfortable. So I can't think of anything. There's a lot of other products that are similar now. They're making a lot of clone type products that
Mm-hmm.
are similar, but anything that's sort of quote unquote organic in a way, like that is going to be a good option because you're not going to have as much risk.
I was watching one of your videos today, and you were talking about the importance of taking soil tests so you can dial in what your actual lawn needs. And
Hmm.
since I started owning my house, I've been paying someone to come and spray. I'd say like 4 times a year, and I don't know if that spray is dialed in towards your lawn. Mostly, it's probably just a mix that they're just spraying out for everybody.
Most
Uh,
likely, yeah. Yep.
so, uh, would that be a good start for me to do a soil test to see what I actually need?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that can get complicated as well, for a lot of beginners, which is kind of a hot topic there on, should you let people get their feet wet a little bit before they try to dive into too much of the science side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, what it showed me, and even with me using Milorganite or a product like that at the beginning, was that, I didn't know that I was starting to see a real excess phosphorus level in my soil, which a lot of Midwestern soils will have anyway. And so if you just keep dumping that on there, there can be some issues with that, but you're also just really wasting that sort of nutrient when you could probably dial yourself into a good fertilizer that you wouldn't have to worry about wasting anything, but you can also make sure your nutrients are right.
So back when you were starting YouTube, was that just when you were getting into lawn care as well? It seems like you've got such a deep knowledge of lawn care. How did you learn all this stuff in such a short period of time?
Well, like I said, I think there's a few years there before that of some of my own experience,
Okay.
for 4 or 5 years of my own yard at home. But back when I was a kid, I mean, I wasn't as into the scientific side, but me being kind of the way that I am, like I said, whatever I decide to do is just very obsessive in terms of learning. So I went and I started just reading as much as I could about certain things, the typical practices, especially for our kind of climate here, and the types of grasses that we have. But then really what it opened up for me once my channel started growing was just the amount of people in the industry that I got to become friends with, or have access to asking them questions directly, which really changed a lot in terms of my knowledge, as well as having professionals and people that were 20, 25 years into their careers in this, and being able to, call them up personally and say, this is a question that I have. What should I be? That's the thing about YouTube too, is in my genre of really wanting to teach people, it's very important to me to get the correct information out there and make
Right.
sure that before I say something, I better know what I'm
Right.
talking about.
Is there a little added extra pressure there for before you make a video if you're going to promote something? Just making sure that it actually works like it says it does.
Yep, and that's something why I think I haven't done a whole lot of sponsorship stuff. Even, I'm at the size of my channel where that's definitely a possibility, but more of what I've been trying to focus on is kind of making sure these are products that I already use. And it's not that I'm saying people just get something and they throw it out there and they've never used it before, but it can kind of be something that for me personally, I want to focus on stuff that I trust and that I can
Right.
see the results from.
So I was doing a little deep dive on some of your content, and I saw that you were talking about you got inspired by the groundskeeper of the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a
Yeah,
chance to talk to him? Now that
I
you're
have.
awesome.
Yep. Last couple years, I don't know how we connected a little bit, but it was on Instagram. I think I started sort of commenting, because what's cool about what he's doing is, as a professional, 30 years into 2025, whatever it is, but he started to really actually focus on social media too. I think really as just an outlet for educating people. Really, he's not getting any money out of it or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. But so I thought that was cool because he's showing what's going on the field. People ask questions in the comments. He typically responds to as much as he possibly can. So that's really where I started commenting, and then eventually, I think when I made that story that's on my homepage there on my YouTube channel of kind of how I got into all of this, just sent it to him and said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, you're a big inspiration for me just getting into this." And he just responded back, and we kind of talked back and forth ever since then, every once in a while.
That's very cool. So, what were some of your initial questions for him?
You know, I think it was really just specifics of what goes on, a few things, nerdy things, I guess you'd say, about the field, and height of cut and what mower are you using and things
Yeah.
like that. Just stuff that probably most people wouldn't have access to, or that I think what surprises people a lot is that when I go talk to someone, they're kind of the same, like, how do you know all this stuff
Yeah.
if you're not like in our quote unquote industry? But I have to do a lot of my own research, and like I said, meeting people in the industry has helped me a lot to learn as well.
I've got a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I thought possibly you might have asked him, how did they get the designs out there?
Yeah. So, that's a question that a lot of people have in terms of I kind of don't do anything that crazy, but I do kind of some fun stuff with stripes
Mm-hmm.
too in my yard. And so really it's just a bending of grass, especially if you have rollers on your mower or you're
Mm-hmm.
pulling behind a roller or something. That's really the start of how they do it. But then some of their more intricate patterns, they've done some really cool stuff, like put the Boston Red Sox, like the actual sock out in the
Yeah,
field,
right.
or
Yep.
yeah,
That's what I'm thinking
that's
of right now. Like, how would you possibly do that with just a roller? But
he actually said that they use sometimes carpet rollers,
okay.
which are like a smaller, like pretty weighted roller that they can do some work by hand. And then also sometimes they'll actually use a water hose, like with pressure, to try to bend the grass down. Because if you ever think about, if you use a hose without any nozzle on it
Yep.
and you kind of let it out into the grass, it really lays things over. So yeah, that's kind of what he said.
Boy, well, that's kind of disappointing to me because I know if I had the rollers and I had the hoses out there, there's no way I could make the Boston Red Sox logo. So,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
so when you're making designs in your yard, do you have a roller that you pull behind, or are you actually, like, I know in your front yard you're using a reel mower,
hmm
and so that seems to leave stripes better.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, so I do it both ways because the older mower, I guess the rotary mowers that I use, I do have some rollers that I can pull behind there and do some things. But yeah, the real focus of real mowing is the fact that it doesn't have any wheels on the machine.
hmm
So no matter where you go, you're not leaving those tire marks. You're just constantly leaving a rolled sort of stripe look, which is really, once I started doing that, I became way obsessed with it,
It's
and
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, it's fun.
That's my dream goal is to get to that point someday, but I don't know if it's possible with the grass I've got. And I don't know. I know those real mowers are very expensive too. So,
They are, yeah,
um,
they are, but, you could do some renovation work. That's really how I got to where I'm at too, is had to do some renovation stuff for sure.
well, I saw in one of your videos you were actually killing your lawn so you could make a better lawn. How nerve-wracking was that process?
I've done that so many times now
Okay.
that it's hard to remember back to the beginning of when I first started doing that. But yeah, beforehand, when you don't feel super comfortable doing it, it is pretty nerve-wracking because you just know once that spray goes down, there's no going back. But I think I've done enough of it now that I just feel I've done enough, I guess, in this sort of thing that I know that no matter what happens, everything is fixable. Like,
Okay.
it might not be in 5 days, but everything is fixable with time and patience. So that's kind of been my learning experience over time, is let things, don't go too crazy on if you make a mistake or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, like specifically on your front lawn, you burnt that and then you planted. Is that a special type of grass to make it look?
It's not really a special type of grass, but it's one that's probably not used as much as a full yard in our climate.
Okay.
I'm really on the border of it kind of not being the greatest idea, honestly. Like a
Okay.
lot of people who I talk to are like, I wouldn't do that. Like a lot of golf course people I talk to are like, I don't know
Yeah.
why you're doing that. That's not a, but it's been a challenge for me. And especially in the prime seasons of spring and fall here, there's just nothing that looks exactly like it. It's perennial ryegrass, so it's what they use on Augusta National for the Masters tournament or
hmm
something like that.
So after you got that planted, did you have to do extra leveling? Because it seems like if you're using a real mower and you have any high spots, you'd scalp it. Is that true? Or
Well, the what's good about real mowing and the rollers is that if you think you don't have four spots anymore of tires to
okay.
actually kind of bump around, you've got a flat roller surface there. So it does better in terms of not scalping,
Oh,
honestly. But
okay.
you're also moving your height of cut way lower with a real mower typically, which I was at, 3/4 of an inch. So there is still the possibility. And I will say that the leveling just makes everything more fun. Like when you're mowing and you have a really super bumpy yard, everybody knows it's just you're kind of out there bouncing around and it's not the
That's
most
right.
enjoyable thing. But now I'm on 3 years of leveling work. So every season I've done some sort of leveling to it and now it's pretty nice and smooth.
So, what's the best recommendation for how many times you should mow your lawn? Is there a certain number of days in between each lawn that you go through, or do you mow every day?
Well, with the low height of cut, it all
Mm-hmm.
comes down to trying to stay within a 1/3 rule, which just means trying to not cut off more than 1/3 of your grass blade when you're mowing. So a lot of people still have it in their mind if they hate lawn care or they hate mowing, like I'm gonna go out there every 2 weeks and just cut it at the lowest possible setting I can do it, and that way I don't have to do it again. But honestly, they would have a better yard even if they didn't care about it whatsoever, if they just raised their height up so they weren't cutting off so much of that grass blade because it's so stressful to the plant. And, doing it once or twice, we all run to that situation. You get busy, maybe you've had rain for 4 or 5 days and you can't get out there and you have to kind of cut off a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fine. But doing it week after week after week after week, the plant starts to just say, I can't handle this anymore. And, weeds invade and it just starts to look terrible. So, as much as you can possibly get out there and mow when appropriate, during the spring, fall here in the Midwest, things are growing quickly every 2, 3 days. That's great. I know a lot of people can't do it, but that's where raising your height so you're not cutting as much off is the key.
Okay, and so I've heard this in the past too. If you have taller grass, it needs less water. Is that true, or is that just a
Sometimes, because
okay?
you can kind of think proportionally, the grass in a way may have a longer root system if it's a little taller.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people's thinking is that, especially with the way I cut my yard so short in certain sections, is that it's going to die out in the summer. You'll never be able to survive. But the same thing with a golf course. I mean,
Yep.
they're cutting way even shorter on greens than I am, and it's all about management at that point. It's not a natural thing I would say necessarily to the plant, but it's how you manage it, and it's definitely doable. It's just more challenging than just having a regular yard, I guess you'd say.
Right. Well, tell me this now. You've got the most pristine yard in your town. You're out driving around and you're looking at other lawns. Does it drive you nuts when you come upon a lawn that's 4 feet
You
tall
know,
and
I try not to really let it bother me or anything what other people are doing. I
yep.
mean, it is what it is, especially in my neighborhood alone. There's not really anybody else that's even remotely close to me in
Right.
terms of
Yeah.
my obsession
Yep.
or any of that. So, a lot of comments come in on YouTube and stuff like, well, don't you care about your neighbors or why aren't you doing this for them or that? And I'm like, I can't force anybody to
Yep.
do anything. I
Yep.
mean, that's their property. So,
Yep. I got a kick out of it. I was watching one of your videos and you were actually using a leaf blower to blow the leaves off your tree so you could mow
mhm.
them. And in there, you made a little comment like, my neighbors already think I'm weird or something for being out
Yep.
doing this stuff.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah,
to
I
add
pretty
to it?
much, Towards the beginning, I think people thought I was pretty crazy in
Yep.
general, but then now that they know, most of them know, like, this is my job,
Yep.
so they're not quite as surprised, I guess you'd say, anymore,
Uh,
but
how many hours on average do you spend in your yard a day?
uh, I mean, it's pretty much like I think the content side of things, people probably don't understand exactly what all goes into that or time-wise. It depends on how you make content.
Mhm.
Everybody does things differently. Some people just, can do videos really quickly. There's not a whole lot involved with it. I try to make mine more like I mean, they're not movies, but they're like more cinematic
Right.
looking, a lot more story type of involvement in it. So it takes me a lot longer. I'd say once I'm doing the work and filming, typically, it's just like a normal work day. I pretty
Mhm.
much am out there 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 or 5. And then, I take a little break and go ahead and start editing at night. So it gets to be a lot, but it's also fun. So
Mhm. Do you like the editing side of things? And is that something you were fluent at when you started this, or is that something you've just been slowly learning as you went as well?
same thing
Awesome.
with the lawn itself is I'm actually probably at this point more obsessed with cinematography than I
Okay.
am even lawn care. That's what it's neck and neck because obviously my business is now taking care of my lawn and creating content for people. So I don't really lose sight of that. But at the same time, I'm probably doing as much research on cameras and, filming and getting myself better at that side of things too. So no, I had never made a single video in my life before I started doing my YouTube channel, my music one, and then this one. So, yep,
And for my listeners, you can attest to this, I'm sure. Making a video is a lot harder than it looks. And a
it
lot,
is.
I know from my point of view, like a 3 minute video, you can spend hours on that. And
Yep.
that's how long does it usually take you to make a typical video?
I would say now it depends on what I'm making, but typically a lot of people ask me that, and it's probably about an hour of editing for, how many minutes. So, like, if I got a 10-minute video, then I probably spend about 10 hours on it as
Hmm.
far as editing goes.
Yep. But like you said, it's kind of fun to learn the editing side of things. I know when I started, I had an issue like, oh, I want to do this, but how would I do that?
Yep.
And I'm slowly getting to the point where I can put what I'm imagining on the screen, and that's kind of
It,
a fun feeling. So,
it is. That's actually my wife and I had this conversation not too long ago. I told her, I said, what's fun as a creator or as a creative person is when you have something in your head and you're finally able to create exactly what was in your head and know how to do it on the computer and with your camera and everything. I was like, that's a moment where, for some people who don't have never really created things, they probably don't really understand that. But it's definitely a moment I've had recently too, where I've had something very specific in my head and I'm able to accomplish it now with my skills. So
I'm definitely not there yet. I'm getting closer to where I want to be, but I can't wait for that day where I can just imagine something and boom, I can pull it off in my editing.
yeah.
Well,
And
let's.
that's really all practice. It is. It just takes hours and hours of practice and getting better at it.
So, do you have any favorite editing software you could recommend?
I use Final Cut.
Awesome.
I've always been a Mac person just because
Yep.
of my music background and that side of it. So that's just where I am. Definitely PC. People usually on Adobe Premiere
Right.
or
Yep.
DaVinci Resolve is kind of coming more popular now as well. But yeah,
Now, do you know, is DaVinci Resolve a free software?
it is for the sort of basic version. When you
Okay.
really want to get into a lot of, it's more of like a professional coloring
Okay.
program. So for people who do color grading for a living, it's a program that a lot of those people use. But
Yep.
the free version is still very powerful. I know quite a few people who use it. And
I guess what it boiled down to for me is Final Cut Pro was a one time cost, where Adobe Premiere is a subscription, and I hate subscriptions. So
I agree.
it made my decision pretty easy.
It's one of those softwares there aren't many left that are like that. I
Hmm.
mean, pretty much everything has kind of moved to that subscription model. So I agree. I liked that. I was like, I can pay this.
Yep.
I get
You're
it.
done
It's
with
on my
it.
computer, and that's it.
Yep. Well, have you ordered your Mac Mini with the M1 chip yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I used to actually long time ago, I was probably one of the first people that did the cord cutting thing where was like, I don't know why I need to buy all this TV anymore. I can just buy a little Mac Mini, which I had, and I had it hooked up to my TV in my living room, and I had the keyboard sitting across the room, and I
Oh,
would like
nice.
pull up shows and stuff, and everyone who came over was like, what are you like? I don't understand this. I'm like, just wait, you'll get it.
Well,
So,
now you can brag about that now because everyone's
it,
like, oh, now I see what he was doing.
yep.
So what's your machine of choice right now? Do you use the MacBook Pro or you?
I started out on the MacBook Pro. I think it's pretty old. It's like a 15 or something. But last year, I was finally able to find a pretty good deal on an iMac Pro,
Oh, okay.
and so I actually got one of those about a year ago now, right around like Black Friday time last year. And so I've been using that this whole year for editing, and it's amazing. Like
So
having so much more screen real estate, and
you can
yeah.
tell a big difference then moving from a MacBook Pro to actual iMac.
Yeah, I think not only the screen, but just the power wise, like things work a lot faster rendering wise. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
think on probably the brand new MacBooks, it wouldn't be a huge difference,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, well, let's shift gears here a little bit. I know you're from Minnesota, and I see you're wearing the Minnesota Wild hat. People aren't going to be able to see that on the podcast, but I know you're a Minnesota Vikings fan as well.
Yep.
That's another reason. I turned on your channel and I saw the Minnesota Vikings hat, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to love this channel because I'm a huge Vikings fan as well. So, what do you think right now? Are we going to make the playoffs? Uh,
Well, oh man, you know how it is.
I do.
This past week, I was like watching the game against, the second worst team in the league, and there's somehow always almost find a way to lose. And I was thinking that they were going to, honestly, towards the end of the game. And then I was like, once that happens, the season's over pretty
Yep.
much right at that point. So I might as well just quit watching. But yeah, I was I don't know. They got a really tough schedule coming up yet,
Yep.
so we'll see.
I was just telling my coworkers, even when they have a easy opponent or what's considered an easy opponent, they can never just have an easy game. I said every game I'm just sitting there, my stomach is in knots the entire game.
hmm
So,
I don't
well,
understand why they can't ever just put away a team at the end of a
I
game.
know it's
Like,
just like
can't find a defensive stop, can't have an offensive drive that just like puts away the game. It never
they've
happens.
been in a bad rut here of playing down to their opponent. So, I don't know. I am excited this year, though. I don't know. Are you a Kirk Cousins fan? What do you think on that? I know a lot of people are throwing him under the bus and everything, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm really liking what I'm seeing here. Um, I
Yeah,
definitely
I
think they
don't.
should let the contract
I
ride out and let's get some nasty defensive linemen to pair with Daniil Hunter and the Juggernaut, and let's
yeah,
go from okay defense to an elite one again next year and see what we can do.
and that's what I think a lot of people probably are forgetting is missing a player like him, even a single player like him not being there is huge as far as like the defense and how it's been going this whole year. But then last week too, missing the linebacker right before
Kendricks,
the
yep.
game. Yeah,
Uh,
that's not good. So that kind
Unbelievable,
of
and he's arguably the best defender right now. I know Harrison Smith is very good too, but a lot of people would say Kendricks is the MVP of that defense, and I couldn't say they'd be wrong on saying that.
no.
But
I think Cousins, I think he probably just gets a little bit of more of a bad rap just because of his I don't know what it is. It's just you never feel like he's one of those absolute elite quarterbacks where you're 100% confident every time he has the ball. Like he's very talented, and I think in these last few games, he's played really, really well. But then there'll be other times where you're like
yeah,
watching is like, is
yep,
this the same player? I don't
yep.
know.
I don't know. It's been nice to see that he's got such a good uh, new receiving core here with Justin Jefferson stepping up after the Stephon Diggs trade. And actually, when that happened, I know a bunch of fans were upset. But looking back on it, it's looking pretty good now. I
I
bet,
agree.
if you asked anybody right now, I bet everyone would be happy with taking Justin Jefferson over Stephon Diggs. Even though Diggs is having a good year, you don't have to worry about the locker room issues with Justin
Yeah.
Jefferson.
And him being a rookie, and I think the upside is very high going forward. So hopefully he can keep himself in check with ego wise. But he
Right.
seems like,
He
he
seems like a
seems low.
level-headed guy, and I hope
Yep.
that's the way he is. A lot of times,
Yep.
it even, when Diggs started out, it seemed like he was willing to put in the work to become the guy. But once, the Minneapolis Miracle, it seemed like all that kind of stuff went to his head a little bit. And I think everyone won on that trade because, Buffalo's getting a great receiver. Stephon Diggs no one can say he's not a great athlete. And
No. And I think that for Jefferson, I think maybe even too, if he gets a little more size, I mean, he's still very young. So that's my only thing that I sort of worry about is he doesn't look like a very big player yet at this point,
yep,
in terms of taking some of those big hits that receivers do. But I think that'll also come,
I
obviously,
think
too.
so too. What do you think that last 40-yard catch? Do you think it was an offensive pass interference? Would you have called that if you were the ref?
I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
I'm not sure either. I mean, it looked like it in the replay, but then again, the defender was already moving that way. His momentum was kind of carrying him there. So I don't know. I'm always biased towards the Vikings. So
Yep. Yeah, it's been a disappointing year for the Gophers, which I see you have a Gophers hat on. So that's been kind of a major thing I was looking forward to this year. Last year I went to that bowl game on January 1st down in Florida. That was probably the best sporting event I've ever been to for sure. And so I was looking forward to the season, but it didn't go so well.
yep, right. And are they going to get many more games in? Was that right? Did I see they had 40 people with COVID?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that they were supposed to play the Nebraska game, but then that was still pending a bunch of stuff. So I haven't heard for sure if that's going forward or not. But
And then did Bateman, he opted out now again, right? Okay,
yes,
so that's they're taking tough hit after tough hit.
yeah,
Hopefully, PJ Fleck is, if he didn't want to be a coach, he'd be great at content creation. I
yeah,
mean,
you
he
would.
would be an
Yep.
awesome guy to have on a podcast sometime because, man, does he just radiate energy. Uh, I like to tell my friends, well, everyone that's around here, basically flecknetized is what K-Fan likes to say, and it's true
Hmm.
because that energy, man, I don't know where it comes from, but I don't
No,
think I
I
can think
agree.
of a single person who's more energetic than PJ Fleck. So,
Nope,
how about
I agree.
so are you into Timberwolves? Do you
I was kind of into the Timberwolves back like when I was in high school, sort of the time frame when they were decent with
Yep.
Kevin Garnett and that era. But ever since then, since they kind of really went off the deep end there for a while, I haven't been following it as much. And I don't know, I'm not as much of an NBA fan. I
Okay.
just the game isn't quite as like I like college basketball, but
Yep.
it's kind of different.
I do agree
So
college basketball is just a better game. I mean, they call travels. It seems like
yeah.
the refereeing is a little more consistent, and I guess that's what draws me towards that a
I
little
feel like
more.
it's a little more of a team game still,
Mhm.
whereas the NBA can be more of like who's the best player on your team and give them the ball every single time down the
Yep.
floor. And yeah,
Yep, I agree. How about MLB? You a Twins fan?
I am a Twins fan.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome. Yep.
Yep.
Are you excited about the AAA affiliate going to be the St. Paul Saints?
Yeah. I
I think
think
that's going to be a cool
that'll be
move.
cool.
Have you ever had a chance to go to that stadium? I've heard it's amazing, but I
I
haven't had.
have not, but I've also heard very good things about that. So there's the Cubs have their AAA here in Des Moines
Okay,
and they have a really nice place here in stadium as well. So those are some fun games to go to. Of course, this year they didn't have any because of
right.
everything
Yep.
going on, but yeah.
I felt really bad for my dad. This was the year he finally bought. I think you're still a season ticket holder. He bought 10 tickets to the games, and we live in North Dakota, so it's a 4-hour drive to get there. And this was the year he bought 10 tickets and didn't get a chance to use any of them.
Oh man.
So
Yep.
hopefully it's going to carry over into next year, and hopefully we'll get to watch some next year. But I don't know. I think they've got an exciting future ahead of them as well.
I think so.
Well, before I let you go here, I've got a quick question segment to help my listeners learn a little bit more about you, maybe stuff people haven't heard before. I've just got 8 questions here and just a quick response. So here we
Okay.
go. What bugs you more? 1998 Falcons loss, '09 Saints loss, or just the Green Bay Packers in general?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say the '09. I think that one sticks in my mind the most. Probably just how old I was and everything, but yeah,
All right. I think we already got this one answered earlier, but Apple or PC,
definitely Apple for me.
Coke or Pepsi?
Go Coke.
All right. You have to buy one camera line. Are you going with Sony, Canon, Fuji, or Nikon?
I'm gonna go with none of those because I use
Okay.
Panasonic cameras.
Panasonic. Ah,
Yep.
what model do you use?
Well, I have an old G7, which is kind of my main cheap camera that's actually very nice for what it is. And then last year I bought an S1H, which is like the top of the line kind of mirrorless one that they have. So
Okay. Now, do they have a line of cinema cameras as well?
they do. Yeah.
Okay.
They have this one is kind of an in between of it's sort of like a hybrid cinema camera that I got, but
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I haven't even done too much research on Panasonic. I mean, do you know any other YouTubers who are Panasonic shooters?
There's not too many,
Right.
honestly.
Yeah, that's
No.
pretty cool. All right. Your favorite lawnmower used in 2020?
Definitely my Swardman reel mower for sure.
If you could pick one company to sponsor your channel, who would it be? Doesn't have to be lawn care stuff either. It can just
I
be
have this
anybody.
in mind already,
Okay.
which hopefully they're listening. Polaris, actually.
Polaris. Okay.
So when I was a kid, there was a couple of Polaris plants near where I grew up. So a lot of people in my town work there. It's a Minnesota company. And so I'm planning on moving to an acreage someday,
Okay.
hopefully. And I was
Yep.
like, that'd be a really good partner to have right there.
That would be. Yep. Well, for all my listeners, let's try and make that happen. We've got absolutely zero pull, but if there's one thing we can make happen, let's try and make that happen.
Yep.
What is the best tool you have used to improve your podcast in 2020?
Um, actually, I'd say just the platform that I'm on, which is I'm on the Simplecast platform that I'm using there. As far as like uploading and getting it sent out to all the platforms and everything, it just works flawlessly. So
Now, is that a paid?
it is. I think it's not very expensive. I think
Okay.
it's like, $15 a month or something like that. But you
Okay.
get everything sent out and you get all your stats from them and stuff too.
Awesome.
So,
That sounds very nice. I'm going to have to check that out.
yep.
All right. Final question. If you could collaborate with any YouTuber, who would it be? And I know you've already got to
Uh,
collaborate with a lot of big names. It doesn't have to be someone you've collaborated with in the past, but
I would probably say it would go to the camera side, maybe.
okay.
There's a channel on there that's much more like kind of what I'm doing on my own other personal channel, but it's called Trout and Coffee. So it's just kind of really chill, like go out on adventures in nature type videos, and that's probably, I guess, someone I would like to collaborate with.
Awesome. Well, I love watching YouTube videos, and I actually haven't heard of that one, so I'm going to do a little research on that. That was actually one of the questions I didn't get asked in the main interview here is who are your favorite YouTubers?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of lawn stuff that I watch too, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of gotten to the point now where there's so much going on YouTube that it's
Right.
hard to sort of focus your energy everywhere. But uh, that would be one. I'd say probably my favorite channel is that one. But then Peter McKinnon,
Right. Yep.
uh, as far as like the camera side goes, he's probably one of the most popular. That's one I
Unbelievable.
like to
Yep.
watch. Yeah.
I'm definitely subscribed, and I've watched just about every single one of his videos. So, how about Casey Neistat?
Yep. There's another guy, there's another channel called Make Art Now, I think it
Yep,
is.
I've
A-
watched that one. Yep.
He's fantastic as
Yep.
well.
It's amazing to me, just from starting my podcast and getting to talk to some of my favorite YouTubers like yourself, how intertwined the YouTube community is and how awesome people are on the YouTube community. I mean, there's so many people with great skills and just willing to share it for free on YouTube. It's an amazing community.
Yeah, I think that, one thing that we can touch on here yet too a little bit is, for people who might be starting out on YouTube or something, it is kind of a tight knit community, I think, because there's just not a lot of people who, especially for me, like who get to that point where you might be doing it for a living and you're that serious about it. It's not just a hobby anymore, but it's your actual business and everything. And I think that once you get to that point, there's a kind of an exclusive club of people there who obviously have to be extremely passionate about whatever their topic is in order to get to that level. So that's what I think is really cool about it.
And I guess a follow-up question for that would be, um, what was that like making the dive into full-time YouTube? Was that nerve-wracking?
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, I got to that point where I just had to make a decision. My time is being split so much between my regular job and trying to make this sort of a career, which I saw the trajectory of it. I'm not going to say everybody else did at that point, like
Yep.
just like anything else you have to take a risk on, but I just felt like if I stop doing one thing and go all in on the other thing, then I think I really can make it work. And ever since then, it's just, it's like they say, once you put your mind to something, opportunities come up that you never would have even imagined would happen, or you could have never, sought out on your own. They just sort of drop in your lap.
Yep. I think that's great advice for all of my listeners. And I think the people who would listen to my podcast probably are starting out like myself, trying to learn. And, a lot of the YouTubers I've had on here have said the thing they regret the most is not getting started sooner. Is
Yep.
that a regret of yours as well?
Well, I think, I started out pretty early. I just wish I would have probably been a little more in tune with what may happen, or how to sort of make it work for me. But I would say that when you're starting out, it's just really about finding something you're absolutely 100% passionate about and not think about all of that, like what's the end goal right away, because
Right.
I think it becomes really overwhelming when you start putting all of your time into videos and then you put them out there and you're like, well, I'm not getting very many views, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. It gets very discouraging at the beginning if you're not doing it for the right reasons, which is just you have something that you want to talk about, you want to make videos about, like that should be the ultimate starting point.
Yep.
And then hopefully, eventually someday down the line, it could maybe be more than that. But if you don't have that at the beginning, I think you're going to be pretty frustrated putting all of your time into it and not seeing results right away.
Absolutely. That's great advice to end on here. What can we expect from your channel in the future? Are you going to stick with purely lawn care, or are you going to mix in a little more of the music side of your interests? Or
So I've got another channel that I'm sort of reviving right now.
okay,
I've only got 4 or 5 videos on there from basically the start of, or the end of the lawn season. I started posting over there. So that's my original music channel. It still exists on there. All my old music is on there too. But I've started going after more of like a short story, short film type of stuff on there. And so that's kind of what I want to go after. And then I have a couple other ideas for things I may start in the future. Like I said, my wife and I want to move to an acreage, more of maybe like a homestead type thing eventually. She's very into gardening and that stuff. So there's different, once I got to this point, I pretty much am like, I know how to make content.
yep,
So it's just going to be whatever I want to really dive into. But my lawn stuff takes a lot of my time during that season. I don't really have any other time for other things during that time of year, but
right.
yeah.
Well, I know whatever it is, I can't wait to see it because it's all good content. So,
Thank you.
uh,
I
for
appreciate that.
for my listeners, where would be the best place to find you? We're going to have links to all your stuff in the description of this podcast, but uh, what would be the best?
Yep. So my lawn channel is just my name. So Ryan Knorr Lawn Care, and Knorr Knorr. So I always say 2 extra letters that don't mean anything in there. And But so you can find me there on YouTube. Usually just type in my name and you're gonna find probably both of my channels, but my other one is just under my name, and so not lawn care, but just Ryan Knorr.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on this show. I know you're a very busy creator, and we appreciate your time. Hopefully, we can have you on in the future again sometime. Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Again, thanks for having me.